seeing food inflation move up in lockstep, and with tariffs, while we're actually dealing with a huge gap. I mean, right now, given what happened this week, the delta between inflation and food inflation is now at 2%, which is the highest among G7 countries, with the exception of Japan. And Japan food is not as expensive. So I'd say there's a problem. I mean, it's not normal to see what's going on here.
Well, on that note, we're going to come back and talk about that after the break. We're going to have a listen to our good friends at Cattle, who tell us about how to keep your hand on the pulse of people in a rapid fashion, a rapid pulse, I guess you could say. And then we're going to get to our interview with Ryan and Janet. And I learned some things about mushroom and the industry I did not know. For example, thinking in the context of temporary foreign workers, it's not a seasonal thing. It's 12 months of the year, so they need a very different structure to the program. And I'm a big mushroom fan, so I enjoyed our final interview for the year. And as you said, we got him in. We got him in this year. It's an important issue. So let's have a
mushrooms.
Listen.
All right, we have two special guests joining us today from the mushroom world. We've never had a guest from the mushroom industry. Representing Mushrooms Canada, we have joining us Ryan Koeslag, Executive Vice President and CEO of the group. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you for having me.
And also we have Janet Krayden, Agri-Workforce Specialist, joining us also from Mushrooms Canada. Welcome, Janet.
Thanks for having us.
So to start things off, first of all, could you tell us, Ryan, what is Mushrooms Canada? What are you guys all about?
For sure, yeah. No, and thanks again for having us on your show. And so Mushrooms Canada is the group that represents all of the mushroom growers in the country. So we have mushrooms grown 365 days a year, 7 days a week. We're winter, summer. It's a product that you wouldn't necessarily think that Canada could be growing at all times in the middle of this winter and cold condition, but we do, right? And so whether you're in British Columbia, Ontario, or out east, you can buy a fresh Canadian mushroom at all times in your grocery store. We actually supply nearly 100% of the grocery stores across the country. You might not always think that when you go into those grocery stores that you're buying a Canadian mushroom, but you are actually. And so we have growers, 35% of the industry we say is grown in British Columbia and 60% in Ontario. And then the remainder is Alberta, Manitoba, and Quebec. So those are your main mushroom growing areas. And so we get together and we represent those growers and fight for their interests. We advocate for the more consumption of mushrooms. We promote the healthiness and the nutritional value of mushrooms. And we also try to coordinate research projects on behalf of all those growers. So that's who we are. We've been around since 1957. And, it's been a great industry to be a part of.
That's great. Now, Ryan, mushrooms are one of the fastest growing fresh categories in Canada. Can you tell us why? And can you tell us more about mushrooms, the mushroom market in particular, the last, say, 5 years in Canada?
Yeah, so I think that there's really been a particular uptake in understanding how mushrooms can be associated with any type of dish, right? We don't often consider mushrooms to be a center plate item, but it definitely complements savory dishes really well. And I think that as people become more familiar with the different types of mushrooms, we have agaricus, which is your white creminis, portobellos. That's your type of mushroom that we often see in the grocery store. And, there's a lot of nutritional value associated with that. We have vitamin D. We have an umami effect where, you don't have to add as much salt. We've been looking at ergothylene as a part of promoting the goodness of mushrooms, which is really good for brain health and reparation. So it's I think as we see more people find that interest in mushrooms, they're also going into specialty mushrooms with the shiitakes and the oyster mushrooms. So I think we're seeing that interest and with that nutritional value, that's why our markets have been increasing for a number of years prior to where we see this inflationary issue come about, we were increasing for specialty mushrooms around 20%, and prior to that, we were around 5 or 6% for the whites. But as we see inflationary pressures happening, we do see a bit of a stagnation of the mushroom markets right now, and with that, we've been managing the outputs of that. But we export nearly 40% of what we grow into the United States, and that's been a phenomenal story for our industry. And as those purchasers in the United States see our quality and they see our our commitment to being a consistent supplier, predictable supplier, we've been benefiting and finding more markets in the United States.
Well, I actually had no idea that mushrooms are good for the brain. That's great. That's right. I should eat more mushrooms.
That's right. No, it's our campaign, and in partnership with the American Mushroom Council, it's all about, the magic of mushrooms and how mushrooms are really good for the brain. And there's a lot of new science that's coming out.
Magic of mushrooms. I see what you did there.
That's right. Yeah, there's some smart marketing folks that came up with that.
I'm sure. Now you export. So you export 40% of your production into the U.S. Where else do you export other than the U.S.?
Yeah, so there's actually, beyond the United States, there's very few places that we export fresh. We're a fresh market industry. We don't go into the freezing and canning. We see that really being dominated by both China and Europe. So talking fresh, really it's to the United States. We do hear that there's more actually being exported now to Japan. Between those two countries, that's really the vast majority of what we grow.
All right. So Janet, you're all about costs. I mean, that's your focus as a representative of Mushrooms Canada. And I know you've been, you and I, we've known each other for years, and you're always concerned about input costs for the sector. So what are some of your concerns right now, top line concerns when it comes to input costs for producers?
Yeah, so we find generally that the farmers are absorbing about 30% inflationary costs per year. And it's like cumulative every year, and they're absorbing these costs. And it was good, like now that the carbon tax, which the farmers were paying full 100%, has been removed to some degree. But we're finding that it goes through the full food chain now, including the industrial carbon tax. So it all adds up. And we're always concerned because during COVID, we found the government, like agriculture and agri-food, became a priority. And now we're very concerned because it seems like agriculture and agri-food is no longer a priority, at the same time that they keep saying they want more local food. So the issue that I deal with as the workforce specialist is helping the farms recruit and retain workers and fill job vacancies. And we're finding, like, all the farms, they have over 70% Canadians, but for the harvesting jobs, which are the in-demand jobs, if we can't get Canadians, we really need to allow workers in. And we're finding with the overall changes to the temporary foreign worker program, agriculture, we're just questioning, is it a priority anymore? Because it doesn't seem to be with the operations, and we're losing more and more program options to allow farmers access to labor.
Janet, it seems the industry's pretty labor intensive. Would you agree? I want to set a foundation. I mean, is there a lot of technology in the harvesting piece, or is it just by definition one of those things that needs to be heavily labor focused? What do you guys think about that, and what are your farmers doing?
Both. It's actually, we find the Canadian mushroom farms are super high tech. Mm-hmm. They've done huge investments into technology, but we will always need workers to help operate the technology. Mm-hmm. And it also allows the farms then to produce and pick more mushrooms. So, like I said, 70% of the workers on the mushroom farms across Canada are Canadians. They're producing Canadian product for the stores, which is local. And then we need that 30% to help pick the mushrooms. And the challenge with mushrooms is they have they use robotics, but the robots are not at the stage that they won't bruise the mushrooms. So the
Not
human
sensitive
hand,
enough, right? They're not fine motor skills. Is that
the
it?
human hand is unique. So there's still a need for labor as well. And we think that will continue for a very long time.
For the foreseeable future. Now let's talk about, when it comes to people, let's talk about recruitment, retention, or training. So 70% of the people working these farms are here in Canada, but you're looking for additional help. Now, what are the challenges there? You've kind of broadly said that it's not as much of a focus. You mentioned the temporary foreign worker program. So how do you recruit? Do people come back? And what's the training like? Is it obviously very, very important. And by the way, I'm a big fan of mushrooms. Love mushrooms, by the way. My wife and I agree on many, many things. Mushrooms are not one of them, unfortunately. But
Mine too.
My family, actually.
I love mushrooms.
Whenever you get a pizza, one half of that pizza is covered in mushrooms. I'll just say that.
I don't get it. I mean, mushrooms are so great.
I don't know. I don't get it either. But then it wouldn't be the only thing. So let's get back to the biggest challenge is recruitment, retention, or training. Which of those three things are the biggest challenge? And is there a legislative or regulatory thing that would kind of smooth the path there?
Yeah, so for the mushroom farms, they recruit ongoing advertising to fill the job vacancies. When Canadians don't apply, then they do use the temporary foreign worker program. Is called the agricultural stream, where the workers come for 2-year contracts. And so what we find is for our workers, which are permanent full-time, not seasonal, there always seems, it's year-round, permanent full-time. And there's always sort of a disconnect with the program, which was originally set up for the seasonal agriculture worker program for the fruit and vegetable outside. So we need more options for our workers that allow them to stay. Once they're trained, there's intensive training. It takes over 6 months to train a mushroom harvester. We want them to stay, and that will help help the entire agriculture workforce. So we had a really good pilot program, $2,750 per year. With the government, it was called the Agri-Food Immigration Pilot, and they ended it in May, and it was entirely successful. Was used, well used, over 4,800 workers within the pilot that were using it. We found all our farms and farm workers were starting to use it, and it had very specific criteria to allow the farm workers that are here year round to stay if they wanted to. And we fully supported that. And we don't know why the government ended the program. So we continue to advocate for that. We had 11 groups sign a letter, including the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, where we're saying, we need something like that back. We can't squeeze agriculture and agri-food out of the immigration plan if they're wanting to reduce their numbers. Maybe they should do it more with international students and
more
stuff like that.
Strategically, right? And
strategically.
And Ryan, is that the issue here? Is that, if you look at the program, is it keeping pace with the needs of the growers? It doesn't sound like it is, because is it caught up in the whole overall challenges with the system where there is some abuse and far outside the world of agriculture that it's creating new vulnerabilities, just as Janet was saying? The program was great, it was working great, but for, your kind of collateral damage, is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, and this has been really an ongoing issue for the agriculture labor programs since probably the beginning and the creation of all these programs. We're always being swept or painted with the same brush as, some of these bad actors when, I think we've had years or decades of having evidence of, good practice and good use. And we advocate for these programs on behalf of these workers that, not necessarily we get credit for. The agriculture immigration program, we fought to have that available for our workers. And that doesn't necessarily mean that those workers will continue to work under the mushroom industry. And that's perfectly fine. But we do find evidence that once they immigrate, that they continue to work in mushrooms for up to a decade. So that's been a positive thing for us. And I think the other thing that Janet didn't mention was that pilot program launched during COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And so we really had 2.5 years of fake launch, right? You could almost call it a fake launch or a non-launch or a, mislaunch because of everything that went on with really the delivery of that program in addition to how the response was received during that time. Sure. So we're talking those 4,800 really coming through the last 2 and a bit years because of the situation of COVID going on. So I look at it as a big success and that we need to have more of those programs. We tailored it. We worked with the government to make sure that we were responding to the specific needs of our workers. So we just got it set up. We just got it going and then it's gone. And we're being put into the categories of all these other groups and we're worried about our numbers. And we're not talking a whole lot of people here, but they're very important and they're very big numbers for our industry. So I think that should be recognized and should be pulled apart. We always ask for ag-specific everything when we talk about these programs, and we need to be prioritized, like Janet mentioned before. Go back to those COVID days when food and egg were very important. It should be like that all the time.
No kidding. I want to just go back to the automation question for a bit. Ryan, what are you really interested in or really optimistic about innovations in the sector? It sounds like, it's coming eventually. There'll be some kind of manual dexterity in terms of picking, but it's not anytime soon. So what does have you excited about technology for your farmers?
Well, first off, I would say, I think it's exciting because a lot of the robotics technology is Canadian. It's being developed here in Canada, Western University and out in British Columbia, there's some technology going on. I think that Canada is really being a leader in this robotics technology in a world of, and we just spoke before the podcast started, I'm a Dutch, and my ancestors are Dutch from, right. And so a lot of ag and the mushroom industry are dominated by Dutch technology. And that's the new technology that you often hear is being brought into Canada is from Europe and Holland. But this is a Canadian technology. I think we are excited of where that possibly could go. We're talking the difference of, working under traditional, hours in the sense of humans where, these robotics can work all the time in a mushroom growing room where mushrooms, they expand in size. I think it's 4% every hour. So they're constantly growing. When you talk about a growing bed, they're often, they're harvested 3 times or 3 flushes. And so you go through and you harvest it once, and then you go through a little while later and you harvest it again. Whereas the robots would be able to do that at all time as those mushrooms are growing. So there's a lot of exciting things about that and how it could essentially change the dynamics of the industry. But right now we're seeing, a lot of robotics and automation being paired together with the workers right now, because again, the workers are pulling probably nearly 100% still of those mushrooms. The robotics are getting there, but they're not really, taking over the humans yet at this point. So, there's a lot of integration of automation and the robotics working with our workers. So we still see these programs to be very vital and very important to us. And I should mention too, as part of why we've been doing really well in exporting and expanding our industry is is in part because of a sense of stability with the temporary foreign worker program. And so we want to continue to make sure that that program is good for us and good for our mushroom industry, but there are improvements that can be had. And this immigration pilot is another example of, a good thing that we had that's been lost, and we want to make sure we're heading in the right direction, maintaining that momentum, because that stable labor supply is there, we're able to take advantage of markets and continue to expand. So that's why we're advocating.
Janet, tell us more about Mushrooms Canada's sustainability story. Of course, a lot of people are talking about environmental stewardship, and we often forget that farmers are probably the best environmental stewards that we have. What are some of the initiatives that you're seeing out there in your sector, basically building an argument around sustainability for the sector?
So all the farms, or the majority of the farms that are the members of Mushrooms Canada, a lot of them grow organic. They use organic practices. They, with their compost, that is basically, it's using recycled materials from local farmers, from chicken farms and the straw. And
how big is the organic market within mushroom, approximately?
Ryan, you can explain that more. As far as I know, there's just almost all the farms that we deal with are always telling me that they are
talking
organic.
Half, more than half, or
So we always say that our industry is representative of either people who are organic or certified organic. So really every single one of those mushrooms that are out there are organic, or maybe haven't gone through the certification of organic. And sometimes it's not identified, or the value of marketing as organic is there. But it is that type of an industry in Canada. We don't use pesticides and all those types of things. And because of the new technology and the new barns that they've been building, we don't have the disease and pest pressures that you might see south of the border, as a result of their climate. But because of these investments, we don't have those types of issues of the molds and the flies and all that type of thing. So because of those advancements, organic has been a very understandable practice to get under, and so it might not always be marketed as organic, but the practice is still organic. But
right.
The technology is the highest. That's when on the farm tours I've been in, I've been amazed and almost shocked at the level of science that Canada had, and the technology investments, which I've helped support as the farms have. A lot of the farms have grown in the last 5 years. So it's really amazing. And so compared to the US, they've put so much more technology investment in, and the science with mushroom growing for all the mushrooms, fresh mushrooms you see in the store is absolutely amazing. From what I've physically seen, I've been amazed every time I've went.
I guess before I throw it back to Michael, I guess I have a question to both of you, Ryan and Janet. What is the one thing, or maybe a couple of things, that you would wish consumers would know more about mushrooms in general, or even grocers? What are some of the unique things about mushrooms that we rarely know or we rarely mention out there?
Yeah, staying on kind of this labor track, I always find that a lot of people don't understand necessarily how much we advocate for the workers, right? The mushroom workers that are out there, and the cost that's associated with them. There's often a misconception that temporary foreign workers are cheap labor, and we, reduce the wage costs and all this types of thing. But at the get-go, we have 75% of our workers who are Canadian. And on top of that, every time we advertise for a worker, it's minimum wage plus, we have other benefits that are associated with working in mushrooms. You can get so much for how much you're picking. We provide, for a temporary foreign worker, we provide the housing as well as transportation to and from. There's often language services that are associated with the farms. We're here to help them be successful as they work in our industry. And a lot of people don't hear that side of the story and how the relationship is built between the farms and the workers. We have probably one of the best examples of a living arrangement down in Leamington with Highline Mushrooms, where they have what I describe as a university type campus, where the workers have their own bathroom, their own bedroom, and they share a living space. They have like basketball fields. They have, it's a really nice situation. And it is a prime example of how the value for those workers is there. Right?
Yeah.
And that same CEO that was there before, he often would say, we're a people business. It just happens to be that our people are picking mushrooms. And so, when you think of it that way, a lot of the time that is not the message that you hear on the mainstream. But I think that if we saw and had more conversations with those workers, we'd realize how much our farmers are standing up for our workers and how those relationships are much better than what they're being portrayed.
Janet, what's if we turn our mind to 2030, what does success look like for the Canadian mushroom sector? It sounds like it's a fantastic contributor to the ag culture and the agriculture. It's wonderful to hear so much grown here in Canada as opposed to imported into Canada. So what does success look like? Is it getting this sorted out, this temporary foreign workers and this part sorted out? Is that what success looks like in 2030?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 100%. Sounds like so much is going well. It's just one thing. Just got to get this one thing figured out.
It's like if you can't fill those job vacancies, it means the production has to decrease. There's issues that we're having. Some workers may have to be sent home. Mm-hmm. We're very concerned because the processing of the paperwork for the workers is deteriorating to the point that some farms are reporting that they've been waiting on the agricultural stream work permits, which are supposed to be prioritized, for over 17 months. And all of this is getting worse. So we need a reset. I would have liked to see more in the budget, like some more money put towards operations and processing. They're developing a whole new program for agriculture and fish processing, but they never seem to include like priority processing, what that looks like. We need to have their paperwork done on a regular basis, because then the farms, we have complete teams helping the workers. They have to keep their health cards up to date. They need to go on their annual vacation to see their family. So these are the things we help support the workers with. And like the amount of investment that the farms do to help the workers with these things, like Ryan said, is really, really incredible. But we're constantly waiting on the government. And it's the government processing, and that can make the workers vulnerable. Like they're always worried about the farm employers making the workers vulnerable, but it's the poor processing of the paperwork which can make the workers vulnerable. And we really need that Agri-Food Immigration Pilot reconstituted, because they've done it for the caregivers, they've done it for the rural and remote, which doesn't work where the job vacancies are for agriculture. We need this back for agriculture and agri-food primary processing. We need some access for our workers within this immigration levels plan that they've released, because they're cutting back on everything, but we need a piece of that for the agriculture sector to allow the farm employers to fill job vacancies when Canadians are not applying. So we can have local food, local affordable food.
It's what everybody wants and everybody's calling for at all levels. So thank you so much, both of you, Janet and Ryan, for sharing this. Hopefully we'll help get the word out, and hopefully some of the listeners might be in decision-making capabilities or influence. We'll talk about it on the pod. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. It's
Absolutely.
a wonderful industry, and once again, I like me a nice portobello mushroom burger. So, I'm kind of
stuffed.
It's stuffed. Listen, I'm with you. I think we hear this over and over again that collateral damage issue, as I mentioned before, gets in the way of the bigger objectives of feeding people and with great products. So thank you again, both, for coming on, the Food Professor, joining Savannah and I, and sharing the story and telling us all about it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate this.
Thank you for joining us.
It.
All right, we're back. We were just talking about magic mushrooms. Savannah and I were, anyway, not necessarily
Yes.
Ryan and Janet.